Hello everybody. Today we're going to be working on catching and throwing while seated, bouncing a ball and catching it with two hands, and catching and throwing a bounced ball. My name's Joseph, and today I'm going to be instructing you on a few ways that we can do this. The first skill we're going to work on is throwing a ball from the seated position. I want you to keep in mind some things while we're throwing a ball overhand in the seated position. So first, we're gonna make a right arm angle here, okay? So a nice straight angle right here, okay? And get it up by our ear, okay? And then I want you to think follow through, okay? So arm up by your ear and follow through, okay? Alright, so when we're going to throw the ball from a seated position, we're going to maintain our balance using our tummy muscles, okay? Get that arm up by our ear, okay? And follow through, okay? So arm up by that ear, okay? And follow through. Okay, so the two things that we have to make sure we're paying attention to when we're throwing while seated is getting that arm up by the ear, okay, and following through towards that target, okay. The next skill that we're going to work on is catching from the seated position, okay. The two things that we need to work on when we're catching from the seated position is following the ball with your eyes, keeping our hands out. So following the ball with our eyes, so you'll watch that ball go all the way into your hands and keeping your hands out, ready to grab that ball, okay? Okay, so when we're catching a ball from the seated position, again, we need to make sure we're keeping our balance with our tummy muscles, okay? And when we catch the ball, I'm following the ball with my eyes, hands are out in front of me. Watch that ball go into my hands, okay? Watching that ball into my hands. Hands out, watch that ball go into your hands. All right, now we're gonna work on putting those two skills together and throw and catch from that seated position. So we're focusing on keeping our balance, using our tummy muscles, okay? We're gonna get that arm up by the ear, follow through towards the target, and then once we throw, we get our hands out in front of us, eyes are on the ball, grab the ball, watch the ball go into our hands, okay? Using our tummy muscles to balance, arm is up by that ear, we're gonna follow through and catch that ball, keeping our eyes on the target. Arm up by that ear, throw, hands out in front of us, catch that ball, watching that ball go all the way into my hands. Alrighty, now next we're gonna work on bouncing and catching a ball with two hands, okay? Some similar things from the last concepts we went over. Keeping our eye on the ball, keeping our hands out in front of us, okay, and watching that ball go into our hands when we clasp that ball, okay? So we're gonna let that ball bounce, okay, bouncing it, catching it with two hands, watching that ball go into our hands. We gotta make sure our eyes are on the ball the entire time, okay? Boom, focusing on catching that ball, two hands, bouncing, catching the ball. When we bounce it, we don't wanna bounce it too high, to where it goes up above our head, and we don't want to bounce it too low to where we have to bend over to catch it, okay? When we bounce it, we want to make sure we use that proper force to get it back up through our bottom of our chest. Catch that ball with two hands. Watch it go into our hands. All right, guys, and next we're going to look at catching a bounced ball. So we're going to use all those same techniques that we were using before, keeping our eyes on the ball, our hands out in front of us, but this time the ball is going to be coming from a different direction, bouncing at us off the floor. So You just have to make sure that you're staying focused on that ball and tracking it even when it changes direction and goes from moving down to moving back up, okay? So, that ball, it bounces up. We gotta track that ball, hands out in front of us, and watch that ball go right into our hands, okay? Bounces, catch, okay? Keeping our eyes focused, okay? Hands out in front of us, watching that ball go right into our hands, okay? All right, another skill we're gonna work on today is applying enough force to a ball to push it off of our lap into a bucket. Now with this, you don't want to push too hard and you don't want to push too soft, okay? And you want to make sure you keep the ball in line with where you want to roll it towards, okay? So, from this seated position here, we want to make sure we keep our tummy tight, okay? Focusing on our balance, and we're going to roll the ball off of our lap right into that bucket, okay? Sometimes the ball might bounce out. That's okay, all right? So we're focusing on the direction we're pushing the ball. We want to push it straight off of our lap. Make sure it doesn't fall off the sides. Okay, we're just giving it a push right down the middle, right into that bucket, okay? Alrighty, kids. So today we worked on throwing and catching the ball from our seated position. When we're throwing that ball, we need to keep our arm up by our ear, right? Up high, overhand throwing, and follow through to the target, okay? Follow through towards that target when we're throwing, okay? Make sure we're keeping our tummy tight for our balance from that seated position. When we're doing any catching or throwing, we need to make sure we keep our eyes on the ball and watch that ball go into our hands as we grab that ball, okay? So big focus on keeping our eyes on the ball the entire time and watching that ball go into our hands, okay? When we're catching a bounce ball, we need to make sure we use those same techniques of watching that ball go into our hands and make sure we're tracking that ball as it changes directions from bouncing on the floor, okay? So it's gonna be going down and back up, and we need to make sure we're just keeping our eyes on the ball the whole time, watching it go into our hands, okay? Keep your eyes on the ball. And then when we're pushing that ball off of our lap, we need to make sure that we push with enough force to get that ball into the bucket, but we can't push too hard or that ball might bounce out of the bucket or it might miss the bucket. So we need to make sure we push it right down our lap, a little bit of force in that straight direction, doesn't fall off the sides, and goes right to our target, okay? Good job, everybody.